that's not just a phone. Like, that's my future. Like in the toilet, like staring up at me with this display on.
Are you ready? All right, let's go.
Manufacturing is sexy. Sounds crazy? Just wait. I'm Z Holly, host of The Art of Manufacturing. Your behind-the-scenes look at how people who make stuff are trying to make it in their industries. If you've ever wondered how to build a brand, a business, or just a better mousetrap, tune in and enjoy. Some of you might remember our episode a year ago with Jesse Genet from Lumi, the tech startup that's rethinking packaging for e-commerce brands. Well, they recently raised $9 million, and I thought I'd check in with Jesse to get an update. We talk about how they've evolved their strategy and what she learned raising venture capital. We also get tips for finding suppliers and talk about the advantages of offering a platform that gives customers control to tinker with their packaging. We're starting with the original interview, which was so much fun. But if you want, feel free to skip ahead to our more recent conversation around an hour and 8 minutes. Yep, it was a long one. If you recall, Lumi was inspired by Jesse's previous manufacturing startup, Inko Dye. She was blown away by today's new digital tools for starting a new company. But on the physical side, it was just the opposite. Getting her product packaged and fulfilled, it was nearly impossible to figure out. And that's where the big idea hit. Why doesn't someone create a platform to handle this? And that's when Lumi was born. I was curious to hear Jesse's expert tips for packaging. She breaks down some big new trends in e-commerce and why packaging is especially important today. She's energetic and unapologetically quirky. And her stories about turning down Mark Cuban, stalking the original owner of the Inko Dye technology, and what happened as she was about to walk onto the set of Shark Tank, they're all pretty hilarious. We hear about that and a whole lot more on this week's episode of The Art of Manufacturing.
Lumi.com, we help entrepreneurs and businesses of all sizes source and manage their packaging that they need. So primarily e-commerce companies. So everything from printed boxes to, custom packing tape, tissue paper, everything you need that goes around your product so you can ship it out to your customers.
Why are you doing packaging?
Yeah, I get that. It's not like your typical young woman's business concept, I would say. I started my career, my co-founder started out as industrial designers. We met at Art Center studying industrial design. And so we've always had a deep appreciation for branding and the power of branding and design in founding a company. That part comes naturally. Then the why packaging. In the course of running our first business together, this is our second business together, we were launching a physical product and we were blown away by the incredible tools available to us on the digital side, like Shopify and Stripe and Square and these incredible companies that were what if starting a business was pressing a button and getting going, and it was so easy. And we were blown away. And then when it came to the physical side of running our business, it was the exact opposite. It was stressful. You're wiring money overseas and having no idea if you're going to get anything back in return. It's a wish, hope, and a prayer. So that's the inspiration behind this, is what if the physical aspect, what if the packaging was as supported, as kind of technology forward as those other parts.
So we'll get back to the platform itself because there's so much we can learn there. I want to take a step back though and ask you, what was your first product?
So yes, I as a teenager got really into printing fabric and t-shirt printing in my parents' basement and things like that, and so that fascination with printing took me down a rabbit hole where I started researching dye chemistry and ink chemistry. This is your typical junior year in high school, right? And the first product was a fabric dye called Inko Dye, that liquid product that develops its color in sunlight. So it actually comes out of the bottle translucent and then develops its full color when it hits sunlight permanently. So you can print t-shirts and stuff with the sunlight in your own backyard.
That's so cool.
It was really fun, and it's seems so different obviously than what I do now. But there's the geeky fascination with printing processes has served me the whole time. And when you're making custom packaging, the difference between a great package and a not great package is often the knowledge of the printing processes at
interesting.
Play.
What's an example of that?
So an example of that is understanding the primary printing processes for box for corrugate boxes is called Flexographic Printing. These big rotary dies. It's almost like giant rubber stamping. It's like, imagine that a big rubber stamp was on a drum and then boxes were flying underneath it, you know, and being inked the whole time. That is flexographic printing. And that's how when a Blue Apron box shows up on your doorstep or any of that, that's how that's made. So again, like understanding that these are rotary dies, understanding the nature of that printing process, it allows us to make the designs that they're going to turn out amazing with that process. If you don't understand how the printing processes work, it's hard to make great packaging.
So you were a product designer, geeky kid, kind of artist. Where did you come up with the technology for the dye?
Right. I never studied chemistry or I never studied manufacturing. So for me, that aspect comes from like the geekiest level of like sleuthing, you know, for the dye. It was this crazy story where like my first assumption when I was like, it would be very cool if there was a photographic fabric dye. That thought just like occurred to me one day. And then my first assumption was not like, I'll invent that. My first assumption was that it's out there. And so I started looking for it online.
That's a good assumption. A lot of people don't assume that. They want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. So I think that I don't have like too much hubris about it. Like whenever I have a good idea, I assume like some other human has had that idea, right? Like, right? And so I actually think that's a fascinating process is like occasionally you look it up and it's not there. And then you're like, that's a hole in the world. Like, even if it's a tiny little hole, it's a hole. Like, it's a good idea and it's not there. So we started with the research process and I ended up finding that there had been like there had been similar things. And so I found those similar things. There had been a dye chemistry developed in the 1950s by a Stanford chemist who was trying to make a product for children that would be like a fun little product. And I found like really trace references of that online. And this company was called Gibson Paint Company up in the Bay Area in the 50s and 60s.
That was specifically for t-shirts or fabrics or just paper?
No, the Gibson Paint Company was like a paint company. And then I found traces of like that he had been working on something for fabric. Yes. That was meant to be this color changing dye for fabric. There's very little information about it out there. And, but I was like able to find out who owned that company, who like Mr. Gibson was. Mr. Gibson sold his company in the 80s to another person. I found that person living in Walnut Creek and I went to talk to them about it.
Talk about determination.
Yeah. So and I was like 16 or 17 when I went to talk to him, I think 16. So that I think that little anecdote like shows you how I approached things. It's like primary source information. Who knows the most about that thing? Let me see if I can get them to talk to me.
Did he pick up the phone?
No, he didn't pick up the phone. I had to like really sleuth him out with an address. I like basically
stalking his house.
Stalking is another element to this that like, yeah, that's the underbelly of this. Yeah.
And here you are.
And here I am. Right. Yeah. Stalking is involved in, yeah.
Did he own the IP?
Yes. Yeah. So he, what was funny about it is he mainly didn't really want to talk to me because he thought it was generally a waste of time. Because he bought a paint company, like industrial paint, like paint for houses and stuff, and just inherited this really random bit of IP around a photographic fabric dye.
So he didn't invent it.
Yeah, he didn't invent it, and he really didn't care about it. He's like, he had this whole career. By the time I talked to him, he was retired. He retired from owning a paint company. And I was like, remember this thing that you got like, 20 years ago? And he's like, that never made money. It's not really interesting to me. Like, why do you want to talk about that? Why? Like, I'm in retirement right now. Like, why
should I? Leave me alone.
Yeah, like, kind of like leave me alone. But I was able to convince him, that I had ideas and that maybe I could make him some money off something that was valueless to him.
Yeah.
So,
but how would he even? This is a little bit detailed. But
yeah.
How would he even own? The patents would be expired by then.
It wasn't a patent. It was just a trade secret. It was just like it's like a Coca-Cola recipe. It was just like a chemical formula with some, nifty like kind of tricks in there of like how it was actually photographic, and he just like we're literally like he just had like a binder with the recipes and all the notes about the original research.
Did you end up patenting it?
No, we ended up that company operated as the formula as a trade secret the entire time.
So is it still secret?
Yeah,
really?
It is. Yeah, trade secret law is fascinating where like it's a body of law, like patent law, trademark law. And so when you have a trade secret, you take certain precautions to remain a trade secret. Like everyone who ever had knowledge of the Inko Dye formula was under like really firm like trade secret agreement, whether it was someone who was, just mixing barrels or whatever. Like you basically take the steps so that if someone randomly comes up with an identical thing, you have a claim to say like they came by it by fraudulent means because we've protected our secret. And it's interesting.
And it is, people often overlook that as an option because they think, patenting is the strongest form of protection. And the truth is that if it had been patented, he wouldn't own the IP anymore. And it would have been in the public domain and published.
I mean, I'm a big patent supporter, so this is not like an anti-patent situation. But when you read about the nature of patent law and why it got developed, secrets are always more powerful. Mm-hmm. The secrets in the sands of time, like a lot of great inventions pre the patent system were like, monopolies, secrets. Mm-hmm. And so the invention of the patent system is so that human progress moves forward. It is so that you have an incentive to share.
So we can build on top of each other.
It is giving you an incentive to share. That's the nature of the system. Mm-hmm. So secrets are pretty powerful in general still.
Really cool. Yeah. Really interesting. I mean, you have such a fascinating story that we're going to delve into too about like how you got there, Shark Tank and Y-Combinator and, you're all that. So we'll get back to that. There. I know. But what I do want to talk about the company and kind of how does it fit into the trends that are happening in the industry right now?
Yeah. Yeah. So, something that fascinates me and everyone that works at Lumi is that packaging, the reason we feel so passionate about solving the packaging supply chain now, helping create a platform that makes it easier to source these products and buy them, is that there are some fundamental shifts going on in how people buy things. Like generally speaking, like a big example to us of like how far along this trend already is that a company like Dollar Shave Club was acquired by Unilever for $1 billion. That would have been unthinkable 10 years ago.
It's just a razor company. Yeah,
that would have been unthinkable that like everyone thought that direct to consumer products where you say like, hey, it's a vertically integrated product. Hey, like, we've got a better way of doing razors. The concept of that with like quirky messaging and just shipping boxes direct to people's doorstep could overtake the, decades layered routine of everyone heading to CVS and whatnot to buy their Gillette razors and all that good stuff. That's crazy. It's a fundamental shift in how people purchase and what they value. And we really believe in that shift. Like we really believe that, entrepreneurs with great product ideas, willing to, source and invest in that product, bring it directly to the customer, have an amazing opportunity to provide value in those product categories and really shake things up. And the key, though, is that it's direct to consumer. There's a term that we use at Lumi that the CEO of Bonobos coined, which is VCB. It's an acronym that stands for Vertical Commerce Brands. And these VCB companies, it's like Dollar Shave Club, Warby Parker, Casper. There's a lot of smaller players as well. They're starting every day. But the things they have in common are that they are developing their product. They supply it directly to the customer. Casper sells Casper mattresses. Casper doesn't sell Sealy mattresses. They're not just a retailer. They're not just an e-commerce company. They're a whole brand, and they communicate and build their story online. And we just see that this is on an incredible uptick. And for us, what excites us is that because the nature of it, they're shipping their product, they all need packaging. And not only do they need it, but because they don't have stores or another way of communicating with their customers physically, the packaging becomes an integral communication element. When you buy a Casper mattress, the only things you touch are the mattress and the box. You're not shaking someone's hand. You're not looking them in the eye, at a shop somewhere. So all of that is fascinating.
And we're not just talking about taking your product, sticking it on Amazon.
Right.
That's direct to, you may say, direct to consumer, I could just use these existing platforms.
Right.
So how is that different?
Yeah. So that is that is where e-commerce is a big word. E-commerce means anything where you buy something online and it comes to you via a shipment, right? Like it's just this very broad term. And that's why we use terms internally like VCB and stuff to kind of differentiate. The difference there is that, let's use Casper as an example again, like it's not as though Casper selling on Amazon is a terrible idea. Like, Amazon is incredible business. I have a lot of respect for Amazon, but it's the brand building component where you're really losing. Like, Amazon is a big retailer that sells everyone's brands. Like, and when you get that box from Amazon, it's an Amazon box with Amazon tape all over it. You've all seen the Amazon and Echo tape and all that. They're not going to use Casper tape when they're shipping out. They're going to use Echo dot tape, So a lot of these VCBs are understanding that in order to craft a true relationship with you, you can't have other people in the mix. It's you and them. Like, you have a direct line of communication to them.
Well, and presumably, too, once you're on a place like Amazon, it becomes a price game and you have the downward pressure, really on those margins.
Right. Like, again, going to Casper's has a specific anecdote. They, for better or worse, there's a lot of aspirational Casper companies. There's a lot of mattress companies starting, right? And out of a deference for them, I won't name all the different competitors there, but there's a lot of them. And the weird thing is, like, if you could get a Casper mattress on Amazon very well might say, like, oh, you're looking at this? What about these 8 other competitor products?
Right.
One is $50 less or something. Well, that is like, talk about ruining all of the story and the brand and like everything that they built into that product and the dedication. That is, that's the nature of just the difference between a retailer who represents everyone and that has a place. I love going on Amazon to buy a lot of my necessities. It's an incredible service, but it's just kind of fundamentally different because Amazon is, again, like if Lumi ever worked with Amazon, like, it would be supplying them Amazon branded stuff. Amazon is obviously putting their brand forward first.
So who are some of the companies you're working for? And maybe give us an example of how you worked with them to create something unique for their brand.
Yeah. A couple LA companies that I like, that I've really enjoyed working with. One is MeUndies. MeUndies is an awesome underwear. They've got a subscription element of the company, and then also you can log on and buy just incredible prints. They're so fun, and so their brand is really fun. They represent an amazing VCB model where, like, they're building their brand online. They have incredible community engagement, and their packaging is pretty iconic. It's actually a type of packaging, like a plastic pouch that is primarily used in food industry. It actually has a freshness seal, like it's sealed shut, which I think is so cute, like, because it's so fun to receive the underwear and you peel it like it's fresh.
Good to know it's fresh.
It's good to know it's fresh, right? Like, you assume underwear from underwear companies is fresh, but I just think that extra little thought, and obviously you don't need to heat seal a package just to ship it through the mail, but they do that because it provides that really fun customer experience. So, using that anecdote, though, one of the things that we're working on, like, or the power of kind of Lumi as a supply chain partner, is that typically packaging changes and setting up packaging, when you ask someone in operations or procurement, like, as soon as you're talking about the subject, it almost looks like they're breaking out into a cold sweat. Like they all have a nightmare story. They all have like it went wrong, or someone said it was going to be 2 weeks and it was 12 weeks. Like just like awful stuff. And so something fundamental that sounds so simple that I think we're trying to do is we're trying to make the experience pleasant. And that has ramifications, like very positive ramifications. An example for MeUndies is that, like, prior to working with Lumi, they have an iconic, beautiful gray pouch with their logo. And then they also do some seasonal, like they like to do some seasonal changes or specific collaborations. They had done that a little bit prior to working with Lumi. We've worked with them for 9 months. In that time, they've done 4 different design changes. And it's like, this is kind of the softer side of what the Lumi platform is doing. Basically, we've made the changes and working with Lumi and buying your packaging so easy that they make changes now whenever they want, whenever it would serve their business. So now they're making decisions like, we think it'd be cool to do a Valentine's pouch. So boom, they do it. And as opposed to just remembering how difficult it is to make changes, how expensive and stressful it is. And so therefore, you have an internal conversation. Everyone's like, should we do a Valentine's pouch? And people go like, we could, but so like the cold sweat starts. So those are some of the softer things I think we're doing, where it's like, What's the impact of that? I don't know. Does that result in increased engagement? We don't have all the numbers around that stuff, but that really excites me.
That would be super interesting to actually delve into that.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah.
So what's the customer experience for your customers? So tell us about, you think, oh, packaging company. Well, pick up the phone. This is what I want, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what's that platform?
I'll use a different example here in Los Angeles. There's an incredible company called Parachute Home. They sell, a whole variety. It started with bed linens. They have bathroom and
I just got a set for Christmas, actually. Yes,
yeah, so. I have their linen sheets. Anyway, a big fan, big personal fan and business fan. So enough fangirling. This is an interesting example where when you call a normal packaging company, they use a variety of packaging. They use boxes, custom tissue paper, custom tape, custom craft mailers, custom inner poly bags to protect things. It ends up being custom stickers. It ends up being, over a dozen, somewhere between a dozen and 20 components, depending on how you count them. The approach of working with Lumi, and this is why I use words like we're a supply chain company instead of just saying packaging. When we work with a company like that, the first question is about their supply chain and geography. We will find out how many DCs, how many distribution centers you're shipping from. Are you working with a 3PL, a third-party logistics company, to ship your product, or you have your own warehouses? These are crucial questions because the real thing that Lumi does, besides get you a good price on a box and make sure it looks beautiful, that's of course what we do, but those to me are givens. A lot of packaging companies can make you a nice-looking box. But what we do is find out about your company. Do you think you're going to scale 20% in the next 6 months or 50% or 2x? Because that changes how we set up your packaging supply chain. Our goal is you have no downtime and no cold sweats. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in the situation with Parachute Home, they switched distribution locations at one point last year. And so that means that now you need to reevaluate the whole supply chain. Are you overpaying in shipping? Unit cost is not the end all be all. True cost is. So we refer to true cost as the cost of tooling, the cost of freight to get it to the exact location where it's being used, the cost of assembly. This is packaging companies rarely talk about this. Like a box that takes 15 seconds to put together versus one that takes 5. That costs you money at fulfillment. Your fulfillment company is charging you for that time. So we consider that. How fast is this to assemble? So all of those types of elements go into true cost. And that's what Lumi considers when we build out your components. The end result of that is a dashboard that a company like Parachute Home gets to log into, the Parachute Home Lumi dashboard, where you can see all of the different components. Someone on their team can be sitting in their pajamas on Saturday at 11 p.m. ordering.
Is that a good or bad thing?
What they need. Yeah. I'm not supporting a lack of work-life balance. My point is that instead of waiting to call 5 different vendors to order your packaging on Monday because you had a big growth spurt, you place your order and the wheels of production grind into motion.
And how many suppliers do you have access to? How did you develop that out?
So our background in printing and manufacturing allows us to speak their language and become a really valued partner to them because they want to do what they do best, which is have machine uptime, run their machines properly, produce beautiful stuff. So us being this element that brings a business that's appropriate for their facility is also important. The average manufacturer wastes a tremendous amount of time entertaining business and clients. I don't mean entertaining, I mean talking to business and clients that don't actually need things that their machines do very well. Boxes are not boxes. You have box facilities that are an entire city block that should really be doing high volume jobs, certain types of box styles. And then you have boxes like tiny little shops that are great for other things. So we build out our network kind of demand-based, but very geographically centered as well. Like we have a really strong supply chain and manufacturing relationships around where all of the major distribution points are across the U.S.
I would guess that most people listening would think, all right, well, this is pretty simple stuff. Like probably done in Asia, that's probably the cheapest.
Sure.
Where is the actual packaging manufacturing happening?
Yeah, I love that question because it is this sort of oversimplified assumption that the cheapest stuff is made in Asia or China specifically. With packaging, it is certainly not the case, especially what we've been talking about here, boxes, really any craft, any really paper products. primarily they're made in the United States. And then with all the brands we work with, like we've just been talking about in Southern California, you want to make your boxes within 100, 150 miles of where you ship from, because transit cost ends up being a huge part of your landed true cost on that item. Now, there are packaging items that are different than that. Basically, here's one simplistic way to think about it. The less an item costs to ship, the more likely there will be the more likely you can make it farther away for cheaper. So poly mailers are really lightweight. You can fit, 1,000 of them in a box that one person could hold. And so there can be really large factories over in Asia pumping them out, and they ship relatively cheaply. That's not always the best option. I just want to stress, this is where, putting our supply chain hat on, we are thinking about where you're shipping from. And more than 75% of the products that Lumi sells are made in the USA. Yeah.
So rarely do we actually think about that piece of the product, when in fact it's a cost, and it's also a big part of the brand as well.
Yes.
How much should a manufacturer, a brand, plan to spend on the actual packaging piece of it?
Yeah, brands sometimes feel like they're walking into an unknown, like what is the right amount to spend, and often there's overspending in the early days. Like, you want it to be super great, and so that can lead to overspending in the early days on packaging. Rule of thumb that I think is just useful is that from the data from brands that we know of, that we already work with, brands are spending anywhere from 0.5% to 3% of the purchase price, like their average purchase price, on packaging. So let's back that out. Like, let's say that your average customer spends $50 on your website, then anywhere from 0.5% to 3%. So, if you're at 1%, you're at like 50 cents. Right? Am I doing the math right? I want to do math wrong on a podcast. It'd be very embarrassing.
Sounds about right.
sounds about right. So, like, if you have a customer checking out for $50, we see brands spending anywhere from, like, on the low end, like 25 cents to $2.
That's not very much at all.
Yeah, 25 cents to $2 which is a pretty wide gamut. But so the difference there would be, like, are you trying to come across as a luxury brand, or as part of your brand economy? Like, for t-shirt brands and stuff, your customers don't want things to be overpackaged. Mm-hmm. So more is not better. Simplicity and good taste, like, kind of rule the day. So, because customers actually complain about overpackaging.
Huh, interesting.
Because they view it as wasteful. They view it as something that they paid for. They know that they're paying for it. Customers these days are very savvy. They know that if they paid you $50 and it looks like your box in the packaging costs $4, they know that they overpaid for the thing they bought. They know that, like, you could be economizing as a company. Like, they don't want to give you business advice, but they're kind of like, hey, maybe you should cut the 4 layers of tissue paper
and charge me less.
Yeah.
And not ruin the environment while you're at it.
So customers actually have a lot of opinions about packaging. And that's something we talk to brands about. Depending on the brand and what product you're selling, your customer has a higher or lower tolerance for, like, how much packaging they even want to see.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what would be your top tips? Let's say I'm an entrepreneur that's launching a brand.
Yeah.
What are your top, 3 or 5? Like, what should I be thinking about? How do I apply this?
One thing that I think is very important when you're just starting is to ask yourself a set of basic questions that I think people don't spend enough time dwelling on. One is around this basket size. Basket size is known as, like, how much people are going to probably check out for on your site. Think about that, and then back through the math of, like, how much you should potentially be spending on packaging. Another element is, what does your product actually need to get from point A to point B safely? People don't think about that enough. Like, let's say you're starting a swimwear brand, and you just, you think, I need packaging, and your brain just thinks, I need a box. Well, you don't need a box to ship a bathing suit. You could get away with having an envelope of some kind. And that really impacts your bottom line, because not only is the package itself cheaper and less wasteful, but your shipping is going to be cheaper. And that's what kills you as an e-commerce company, is overpaying or not properly planning for the unit economics around shipping costs as well. Because the Amazon effect affects us all. People expect shipping to be free, and shipping is not free for small and growing businesses. you don't have the same clout. You can't negotiate the same way with UPS and whatnot. So that is a big one. Like, people walk in the door a lot to Lumi, literally the door, or email us, and they're like, I need a box. And our first question is, do you need a box? and then even let's say that you do, you're shipping a coffee mug. Of course you need a box. You can't put that in an envelope. It needs to be protected. The next question is, what's the overall impression you're trying to give? What is the most minimal packaging to achieve that in the early days? As entrepreneurs and fast-growing e-commerce companies, things change a lot faster than you think. So you don't want to saddle yourself with too much inventory. A rule of thumb that is helpful is, I say 2 to 6 months of packaging inventory is all you should have at any given time. And we've seen really large companies make mistakes on this. Buy a year's worth of inventory. Before a year passes, someone on your design team is going to want to change your logo. I guarantee it. You might tell me, no, we love this logo, we're never changing it. And I guarantee you 7 months later, someone's going to say, like, well, we're thinking about a small change. And then, you've got 6 months of boxes left. And so then people are upset about that. Inventory exposure is another thing that in your excitable early phases is so hard to consider. Something else that I think entrepreneurs don't think about enough is the physical space that packaging takes up. Okay, this is a funny one that you would be like, it just seems like people would think about this, but people will go onto the website, or we'll talk with them, and they'll decide on a great initial package for their brand, and then they decide on a box. The unit cost makes sense for them, the inventory exposure, everything else is a go, and they buy 2,000 boxes. Well, 2,000 boxes is 3 or 4 pallets of boxes, and they'll have them show up at their Soho apartment in New York. And
totally
not
see that.
yes. Okay, so this is like, everything else is a go. The spreadsheets look fantastic, but we are talking about a physical world here. So we've learned now earlier in the process to ask, do they have a warehouse? Where is this stuff going? Because we've talked with someone for like a month about boxes, only to realize that they're shipping out of their apartment. And you really shouldn't order custom boxes if you're shipping out of your apartment. We're not trying to be down on your big dreams, but it's just not, it's not good advice. And in that situation, it's not like you're out of luck. It's like, perhaps you should get custom tape. That fits in a drawer.
Yeah. And it's cheaper.
Yes.
Awesome.
You're listening to The Art of Manufacturing. Follow our adventures on Instagram and Twitter @ArtofMFG. And to chat with other like-minded creators, join the Art of Manufacturing Facebook group. We'll be right back after this break. I want to give a shout out to Happily, a nationwide network of the best freelance event producers, coordinators, and assistants. They can take on the biggest or smallest of projects. They're a sponsor of the Make It monthly talks, and I've personally worked with the team on everything from high-level strategy to nitty-gritty on-site logistics, and they're great. If your company is looking for long-term or last-minute support on events, go to makeitinla.org/happily, and you'll get a 30% discount on your first 6 months of membership. We're speaking with Jesse Genet, the founder of Lumi.
I think every entrepreneur has a crazy kind of windy path. Something that I think is shed some light on my path is I've never had a job. Like, I've never made money unless customers paid for something that I'm selling. And I think that paints a lot of my story, like, or it puts things in perspective.
It's a very LA thing.
Yeah.
Compare it to Silicon Valley, where it's like, yeah, we'll just grow our audience. We'll just keep growing our audience.
Right.
Like, just give us more investment.
Yes, exactly. Like, we are very, we kind of, have a very sustainable business mindset, because our first business was bootstrapped, and generally we had one small angel investment, but it was like, we didn't, we weren't going to survive if we weren't making money and paying our bills. I would characterize my approach to life in entrepreneurial life as highly experimental. Like, life is short. Life is for the living. Like, get out there, overcome your kind of nerve muscle. It's like I'm throwing out all the trite things that people say, like, fortune favors the bold, like all that crazy stuff, because at one time or another I've like leaned on those methodologies, because I actually grew up kind of shy. Like, I people don't assume that about me now, but I had to overcome my own shyness. And also, everyone I don't think going out and pitching yourself comes like super naturally to anyone, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, some entrepreneurs put on a really great face about it and you just feel like, wow, that person's a natural. Like I could never be like that. They're so confident. They know every time someone asks them a question, they have a perfect answer. The truth is that they've probably been answering those questions for 10 years. No one is a natural, like a natural, completely eloquent entrepreneur who has like a stomach of steel for risk. Something that I believe in, that's why I basically, you know, you mentioned some of the things I've done. Like I've done Shark Tank, did Y-Combinator for this recent business, you know, bootstrapped a company, did venture investment, sold to retailers, like walked into, you know, headquarters of Joanne Fabrics and Michael's Arts and Crafts and said like, you should buy this product, even though I'd never sold to retail before. This isn't bragging. Like at every juncture, it felt completely overwhelming. And like I had to learn a completely new set of skills that I had never learned. I'll share one thing that sums it up for me in terms of my approach as I continue to go forward is I can't attribute this quote to someone because Stefan and I remember both hearing it at a dinner at Y-Combinator, but we don't remember who said it. But it's a great sentiment. It is that the skills that got you to where you are today aren't going to get you to where you want to go. And I would say that when you really let that sink in, it is simultaneously like overwhelming because it's like, what? I thought I've been like banking success points this whole time. Like life is a video game and you're like, what? What about doing all this stuff? Does that not matter? Like, and that's not the point of it. Like, yes, you're banking success points. Like, don't worry. Like, that's not what it means.
Doesn't mean that it wasn't worthwhile.
Yes, and it doesn't mean like no one will remember any of that stuff. But it means that like, that's the kind of harsh part of it, like letting that sink in. But the liberating part, it means like every day you're a new person. It means that kind of beginner's mindset, that naivete that you had when you're learning how to do something for the first time, you have that every day. Like you can go out every day and do something you were completely uncomfortable with.
And I guess if somebody knew how to do it, they would have done it already.
Yeah, right. Like getting comfortable with that. And I think that when I talk to entrepreneurs who are just getting going and stuff, something that I see it was part of my experience too. That's why I'm trying to like really bring home, like this doesn't come naturally to people. Like if you're feeling that way, like I just don't know if I'm cut out for it. Like you're as good as anyone else. Like, but something that is like a little mechanism I use for myself is like how you're not going to get results if you're building your body, if you're not like doing some kind of workout or whatever. Kind of that similar thinking. I view stress and risk as a muscle. So that's like, for instance, before going on Shark Tank, it was extremely stressful for me. And I had a lot of like concerns and fears. And, you know, I was trying to like go over my material a million times, imagining all the awful questions they're going to ask me on national TV, right? But while I was doing that, instead of kind of sinking into despondence, like, am I ready for this? Did I make a bad decision? It was more like, this is going to be a really awesome stress workout. Like this is like the best way to exercise this muscle. Like put yourself through. It was like a stress triathlon. Like
I love it. Yeah, exactly. It's a great way of looking at it. So what was it like? What did they give you advice before you went on?
You have a producer type person who tries to prepare you and coach you and as you go into the process. But it's more authentic than you'd think. Like you try to prepare, you create your little pitch segment. That's rehearsed. Like you rehearse that, which is only a minute or 90 seconds long. And then the rest of it is the conversation with the sharks. And that part, they chop it up and cut it in editing, but there's no cuts or anything while you're doing it. It's just you talking to them until you're done. Until either everyone's passed, you take a deal, or you don't take a deal. Yeah. So it's more, I would say like the doing of it is more authentic than you'd think, but it's unlike any meeting I've ever taken. You're standing there, and like, you know, 5 people are sitting and they just like, you know, leap at you with questions. It's just like, it is a very like think on your feet situation.
So were you pitching the Inko Dye or the
Inko Dye?
Yeah. So
Inko Dye, yeah.
The negotiation piece is online.
Yeah.
And so if anybody wants to watch it, and it's I totally felt for you in that position because I mean you did awesome, but at the same time you could tell that you had to make a split-second decision there, and it's really tough. And you're like, no, and you stood firm.
Yeah. They end up offering a mixture of like a debt equity deal and where, there's going to be debt as a component of it. And that's what made my decision easier, because I knew when you walk into a high stress situation, you need to know your limits. Like, you need to already have negotiated with yourself what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And I knew it's not like we had incredible financial resources, but I knew that we already had a bank line of credit. We were credit worthy. So the idea of giving away equity for debt at that juncture, I knew wasn't a good decision. It wasn't a good decision for the business. So it was easier to walk away.
And it worked out okay?
Yeah, it worked out okay. I mean, it feels so zeitgeist to me. It's like, I love participating. To me, as an entrepreneur in this era, like, that is how a lot of people know about entrepreneurship, that show. So to me, it's really fun to be a part of that. And I feel like, we didn't take a deal or didn't get a deal that we wanted, but I have no regrets about participating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any tips for someone that wanted to be on Shark Tank?
Yeah, I think that this is something I say about all fundraising, but there's no wrong way to fundraise a business. It's about the right fundraising model for what you are trying to do. So I always have a sort of data-driven approach to solving problems. It's like, go look at the last 25 deals that the Sharks have done, where that you feel like it was a positive outcome for that company. And then also look at the last 25 that you think were really like not good for the company. Like, you would be embarrassed if that was you. And then look at the types of companies that had a bad experience and the types of companies that had a good experience, and ask yourself which bucket your idea kind of fits in. Because these aren't accidental things. Like, yes, it relies on you. How do you tell the story? But some ideas are a good fit for the show and some aren't. So really think about that,
So what did it feel like going on? What was that day like?
It was a very, first I arrived at the studio like 7 a.m., like 7 a.m. call time or whatever, even though I was scheduled to go on an afternoon. So you're sitting in like a little, green room situation, like all day long, like eating, like granola bars and stuff like that. Rehearsing. There's only so many times you can rehearse something, right?
Yeah.
So like, you're doing that. Meanwhile, like, as an entrepreneur, like, my company's operating, like, people are texting me about problems that they're having and stuff. But then I had a particular snafu that day. I have like a special story that I don't think I actually have ever told publicly. So this will be interesting process. My segment was showing off Inko Dye, and we had this like little nifty Inko Dye app that we were developing. It wasn't yet on the App Store. And so I had a special version of it on Test Flight, which is like a way of testing out apps. And so it was only on my phone, this special version of the app. As you can also imagine with ABC, everything has to be cleared by the legal team, everything being shown on air. So my phone has actually been cleared by ABC's legal team.
Whoa.
Because I was going to click on my camera roll, and it was going to pull up photos.
Yeah, you want to make sure you don't have anything interesting there.
Yeah, not just interesting, like weird stuff, but also like that there's nothing copyrighted.
Right.
Or if there's a single face, we'd have to get a release from that person in my camera roll. Okay?
Yeah.
So all of that had to be cleared. And so, noon rolls around, I'm still rehearsing, I'm kind of running through my segment, like 2 p.m. rolls around, I was set to go on at 4. Around 3, I'm like, okay, I'm just kind of like doing my final things. And I decide to like, grab another snack, grab a glass of water, go to the bathroom, like make sure like you're not going to be on air with like any emergencies, right? Like, you're not going to be parched or anything. So I'm like doing my last emergency things. And in that flow, that you have escorts and stuff too. It's all very protected. And so I get escorted to like the little women's ladies room. I'm like looking at my makeup for the last time and everything, go in a bathroom stall, drop my phone in the toilet. Yes.
That's like the biggest nightmare.
Okay. And
bad enough.
Yes. Like, so my phone's in my back jeans pocket. Every woman can relate to this. Is stupid girl jean pockets. Like, girl jean pockets aren't big enough for anything. So I've got like my phone in my back jean pocket. It just plop, like goes right in the toilet. I didn't even go to the bathroom, and I never went before the segment because of how. Yeah, so I never ended up going to the bathroom. It wasn't like an emergency, but it was like I see the phone go in the toilet. It's facing up, so like the display is on, and I see it looking at me. And my first reaction is like a normal human reaction of like, oh my gosh, my phone. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, my phone. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like my life. Like it was this like sinking in sensation of like, that's not just the phone, like that's my future, like in the toilet, like staring up at me with this display on. And so it gets so much worse. So like I have no nails. Like I run a manufacturing company. I'm always doing things with my hands. So I have like no real nails. So for this segment, because it was going to zoom in on my hands, I've got fake like pop-on nails on. So I dive into the toilet to get the phone because I'm like, it's like survival. Like I dive into the toilet with my hands to get the phone and all my nails start popping off. Yeah. So like now you've got someone like clawing in a toilet, like at the Sony lot, like with the nails popping off my hands and stuff. And it just keeps getting worse. Like, so I get the phone out. Of course it's dead. Like, of course it's not going to work. Like I thought like maybe like this, so maybe it'll work out. Like, no, nothing. Okay. So it dies like, 30 seconds later. And I walk out in like a daze. So I'm so like it just really starts sinking into me. So I walk out in a daze and my handler, she goes like, what happened? Like she sees my face. It's like a ghost. Like she's looking at a ghost. She asks, so I'm not even talking. She asks, are you injured? Yeah. Like she does like I'm so white. She's like, what happened to this girl in the bathroom? My hands are wet. Like I touched her with my wet toilet hands. She doesn't know why that my hands are wet. Like she thinks probably I wash my hands like a normal person. So as I'm just like, and I go like, I need help. Like my phone. And first I'm just saying like my phone. She's like, okay, your phone broke. And I'm like, no, like for the segment. And long story short, after that, this story gets so much more insane. My co-founder was on a plane. He was the only other person that could help us download the Testify app. He was on a plane to Oregon. So like we had to wait another 20 minutes for him to land. And he just landed, his phone exploding about like helping other people. So we ended up getting a coworker to get the app on their phone, flying from downtown to the studio, throwing their phone. They had to throw their phone over the studio lot fence to the producer person because we couldn't get them clearance to come on. And then I'm handed a new phone with approved pictures and the approved app and stuff as I walked through that tunnel on the show. And I have no idea if like the buttons are going to be the same place and stuff. I was like doing it on the show for the first time using the new phone.
Oh my God. When you signed up for that stress,
that was a good workout.
That was a good one.
That was a solid. And that's the funny part about my segment, and even watching it in hindsight, I remember the feeling I had going on was like, that just happened to me, and I survived that. So like, what have you got, Mark Cuban? Like, who cares? Like, like, who cares anymore? Like it's like if I can deal with that, and like we managed to get the phone, like, how much worse can it be today? Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's so true. Everyone always talks about, embrace failure and you learn from failure. And I just think that's BS. Failure is overrated. We have it all wrong. It's not about learning. I mean, what are you going to learn? Don't drop your iPhone in the toilet, right? No. Yeah. You actually got the courage. It's like,
right. It steals you. It's like that muscle. Right.
Yeah. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Go for it. Like, give me what you got.
Right.
Like,
I survived that. Right. What do you have to say? Like, yeah. So that I think it probably helped me because I didn't have time to be nervous. Right before the segment. I was nervous about finding my phone and getting the phone back. But once I got that, I was like, whatever. Like, let's do this thing, Yeah.
So you turned down the sharks.
Yeah. So after that, I was like, this deal isn't good enough at all. Like, like for what I've been through today. Like, yeah.
So where'd you go from there then?
So that becomes a quick progression of like, filmed that show in October 2014, and very soon after that, Seth and I decided, my co-founder and I decided, you know what, like. We were doing things like Shark Tank and stuff because we knew we were exploring like what comes next for this business. But honestly, we're not thinking radical enough. Maybe what comes next for this business is a new business. And so a few months after that, we started the new company, Lumi.com, and the packaging. So I actually think that process of like, we were thinking too iteratively. Like if you go back and watch the segment, I'm saying like, they go, what's the future of this? And I'm like, well, we're going to launch like new product lines and we have these other ideas. At the end of the day, we ended up deciding what we're most passionate about required an entirely new business.
Amazing.
So that was very soon after.
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah, right. It's like, going back to like just failure and the stress muscle and stuff. Sometimes like you've got to put yourself out there. Sometimes people rejecting your idea, it's actually a time to be like, interesting. They made some good points. Like, maybe I'll do a new idea. Like, it's kind of like, instead of being stressed about that, and I don't feel like the Shark Tank episode is even a full rejection, but some of the things they told me of like, is this idea big enough and stuff? I went home and I thought, maybe not.
That's awesome too, how you listened. And I think we're always told as entrepreneurs that we have to be determined, right?
Oh, like never give up your idea.
Never give up your idea. You got to keep going for it. I mean, you certainly haven't stopped going for it.
No, it's the going for it part that you need to never stop doing. But sometimes you need to let an idea evolve or change or grow. What investors are looking for specifically, I feel from my experience so far, is they want the person who's never going to give up. It doesn't mean you never give up on the original thing you pitched them on. It means you never give up in general. It means you're going to, create something incredible in the world because you are a determined mofo who wants to do that. And you're going to listen to feedback. You're going to make changes. There isn't a business in the world that hasn't made changes. Amazon started selling books. Like now, you buy way more toothpaste there than books. Every idea evolves.
They run the internet, basically, with their AWS.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, they're doing a million things. It's toothpaste. It's the whole internet. It's everything. but the point is, I don't think that, Mr. Bezos is like, I don't know, will people get confused? I told them this was about books. Well,
thank goodness he called it Amazon and not books.com.
Yeah,
right?
you plow forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you say go for it, I think it's the going for it, but it is not defined.
Right.
It can change.
Right. There should be a core, like a kernel kind of what you are trying to do. But that kernel is pretty deep. The kernel for us is we want to make the physical experience of being an entrepreneur easier. We like the idea of connecting the world of manufacturing with the world of entrepreneurship. Those are the kernels. Well, there's a lot of different ways we can attack that. Making packaging easier. That's not the kernel. Being an entrepreneur with a growing, scaling product business. That's the kernel.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And it's there are a lot of companies that have gotten that wrong where they, for example, Kodak actually had the patents for digital cameras. And they saw themselves as a film company, not as an imaging company. Had they seen themselves as an imaging company, they wouldn't have been in so much trouble.
You have to zoom out. Yeah, your revenue flows from an expression of your original idea. It very rarely flows from the idea itself. Like me connecting manufacturers with entrepreneurs, making those two worlds less far apart. It's not obvious how money comes from that. Well, money comes from packaging and connecting them in that way. But if I was so obsessed with that, then I would become very similar to every other packaging company.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Snap used to be Snapchat, and now they've rebranded themselves and refashioned themselves as a camera company, rethinking the camera. So
it's wild.
It's pretty wild.
It's really wild. Yeah.
So think back to your 16-year-old self. What were you like? What would you think about yourself today?
Yeah, that's funny. It's so funny to try to rewind. I think the 16-year-old version of myself was very determined. That was when I was starting my first business. A kernel of something I realized as a teenager that I'm really grateful for is that this is how I was thinking about it at the time. When people ask, why did you start a business as a teenager? Here are not the reasons. It's not because I thought I, could make a bunch of money, or I was fascinated with entrepreneurship, or I was fascinated with t-shirt printing. It was actually really pragmatic. And I remember writing a journal entry about this as a 15 or 16-year-old. I decided, and I really still hold by this idea, that starting a business is a really amazing way to learn about how the world works. That I decided I didn't want to be just a consumer. I don't just want to buy the things that are marketed to me, put in front of me. I want to know, how does this stuff get made? Who's launching these businesses? Who's marketing to me?
You could read about it.
Yeah.
But that's not going to get you
there. I wanted to be part of the system, because then I felt like I'd really learn faster. So that was that's what I thought about as a teenager. I want to learn how this stuff gets made. We use products every single day, whether it's your phone or the desk you're sitting at, all of those are businesses. Somehow all this stuff got made. So that fascinated me. And I remember my decision to start a t-shirt printing was, I had a limited amount of money and I thought I want to start a business. What can I do without a tremendous amount of help and a tremendous amount of money? And t-shirt printing in my parents' basement was high on that list. I needed to spend $300 buying some simple equipment. I used to do drawings that I would put on the shirts, sell them to my friends at school. And I think the lesson there is I didn't start out as a printing geek. I didn't start out as dye chemistry. My dad's not a dye chemist, or anything that seems a natural fit for this stuff. But once you start, your life becomes evolution, a story. So once I was t-shirt printing, just because I thought this is a business that I can sort of afford, then I was like, screen printing is really hard. And I want to do photo designs. How do I do photo designs? Well, photo designs are really hard. You can't really screen print them very well. So now I was researching photographic printing on fabric. And then all of a sudden I'm geeking out on chemistry. But like, I guess what I'm trying, the picture I'm trying to paint there is that you have to start working on an idea, something that interests you, in order to get anywhere. If you're expecting a flash of brilliance to come to you while you nod off in bed, like, you're going to be waiting for a long time.
Well, it's about following your curiosity too. I think that there's so many young people, actually anybody, everyone, they're like, I'm supposed to follow my passion. How do I find that passion? You know,
hard work. Yeah.
And like, I know.
I'm such like this is where my Midwestern roots like show off. Like, I really think that how do you find it? Like, you find it by doing. You find it by starting with one thread that interests you.
No pun intended.
Yeah. No pun intended. You start by like, it was like that basic thing. Like, I want to start a business. I wonder what that's like. Oh, I can afford to start a t-shirt business. Let me start doing that. 3 months later, I'm like, fascinated by dye chemistry. So I do think that curiosity as a personality attribute is really key in most entrepreneurs, and the thing that always comes through is the person's curiosity. So I think that is something to cultivate in yourself, but then you need to kind of get started working on a project. And I also like to remind people, it's not like when I started, it didn't make that much money. So some people who kind of think to themselves, I don't know if I have what it takes right now to quit my day job and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people's ventures have started out as a really strong hobby. Like, the key is doing something. Like, it doesn't have to, don't let someone else put it in a box for you. Is it your income? That's not what is important at the moment. You know what I mean? It's like just the doing, the starting.
So the Midwest, not around here. Where'd you grow up?
Detroit, suburbs of Detroit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that appreciation for manufacturing. My stepdad ran a small little R&D facility. He works on a lot of interesting projects, and he would take me around. Like, I was in steel mills in Detroit, or he would take me to junkyards to like look for an outdated component and stuff like that. And I think that it's not an experience everyone gets, but it gave me appreciation for manufacturing really early. So
remember, you told me that you weren't content to drive just any old car.
Right. I have some interesting personal interests, and one of them, coming from Detroit, is cars, is automobiles. I really love classic cars. I really like understanding things, and so my stepdad taught me how to work on cars early. We restored a 1969 Lincoln Mark III that I drove when I was a 16-year-old girl. That was my first car when I got my driver's license. I don't know if for anyone listening, that a 1969 Lincoln Mark III, it's like a boat. It's like a boat. It's like 22 feet long, but it has suicide doors, like a situation. It was black with white leather interior. It was Elvis owned that car, not my car, but Elvis owned the same car. And I'm trying to paint a picture for you of what 16-year-old Jesse was driving that to school, right?
I love it.
In the suburbs, other guys and stuff were driving Corolla, or whatever. And it's I'm not down on Corollas, but I didn't go to my senior year of high school. We haven't covered that, but I wanted to be done. You're not going to date a high school dude when you're driving a 69 Lincoln and they're driving a Corolla. There's just a mismatch going on.
Oh my God, those poor guys. Yeah. They must have had such an inferiority complex.
Yeah, sorry, not my problem. Yeah. There's certain things I can, take on, and other things I can't. But I'm just kidding. And I don't want to come across as judgmental. Maybe that's what they could afford, and I actually really support that. My point is more of a comical one, where it's I really liked having fun, doing things a different way. And to me, that was just one expression of that. Something that I like about driving classic car is it's your car. You don't see it on the road. When you drive, I'm picking on the Corolla, but when you drive a silver Corolla or whatever, they're everywhere, right? You know, so that's what I like. I like uniqueness, and because it's fun. It's just fun.
You don't live in a normal house or apartment either.
No. You know so much about me.
Well, I've hung out at your place. So.
Yeah. You've been to the office, our crazy industrial office, and yes, I'm doing a life experiment where I live in an Airstream trailer full time. I've been doing it for about a year.
That's very hip right now.
Yeah, I know.
I covet that Airstream. I want one.
It's pretty fun. I like to do things that other people just talk about. The ratio of people who have talked about living in an Airstream trailer to the ratio of people who live full-time in an Airstream trailer. It's like you're talking about 100 people talking about it and a half a person deciding that's I'm going to try that. So I try to keep that ratio high in my life, talking about things and then doing them.
I love it. That's awesome. So there's 3 questions that I want to ask everyone, right?
Yeah.
So the first one is, what does success look like to you? And when is that going to happen? Is it 5 years in the future? What is that?
Yeah. So that's, I think, a fascinating question for entrepreneurs because you're never at your destination. I have definitely made peace with the fact that I could be where I want to be with Lumi in 5 years, is have developed an incredible supply chain company where I'm helping thousands upon thousands of entrepreneurs, and we're a major player, we're processing billions of dollars of transactions and really helping these people. So, but what I recognize is I can be there and I won't feel like I'm at success point. It fascinates me when people reach out to me and they say things to me I want to speak with you, or I want to do this little interview or something because you are such a successful entrepreneur. I don't feel that. When you're you don't feel that. It's this continual growth loop. So
restless. You're restless.
Yeah. But what I would say is I've tempered that now with when you make peace with the fact that you're not going to feel like it's around the corner, that it's a journey and you really are, you've got big goals and you always want to have big goals, then success is one way to define it that is more healthy for me is learning. Okay. So if 3 months elapse and I can't tangibly explain what Lumi got better at in that quarter, what we learned, what mistakes we made that we're wow, that we're not going to do it that way again. If I can't give you a really awesome list of things I learned that quarter, then I'm not successful. That's my job. My job is to learn really fast and to change things really fast so that I can develop something interesting. So success for me in the here and now, realizing that you're never going to get to the end of the rainbow because it doesn't exist, is a rapid rate of learning.
And then long term, it's really just creating that platform to support entrepreneurs to make them successful.
Having an impact, having a true impact where a new upstart entrepreneur can point to Lumi and say that had a tangible impact on my company. I was able to focus on what mattered to my customers because Lumi was supporting me from a supply chain perspective.
Cool. The next question is, okay, you're on that path. What are you afraid of? What is it that makes you the most nervous right now?
Yeah. Wow. I mean,
you've already dropped your iPhone in the toilet. What could you be afraid of, right? But
what makes me the most nervous? I think kind of that going back to that learning point, it's always that my rate of learning won't be fast enough, that I will miss some key piece of learning and won't move fast enough in my business and, make a critical error or have something pass me by. So that in a broad scope, that's the fear, is that if success looks like learning really fast, then the fear would be that I don't learn fast enough and I miss something important. But as an individual, I've kind of approached as I've reached a new Zen level in my life where I've shed the fears I used to have where it's what if my business blew up tomorrow? I've made peace actually but as an entrepreneur, your business could blow up tomorrow every single day you wake up. Something could happen. It could be a flash flood at a key factory. I don't even know. I can't predict the world. So I've actually
we actually had a guest, the very first episode actually, was someone who literally had her entire, they just moved to a new factory, the entire thing burned down.
Yeah. That stuff in life happens. And so making peace with the fact that my business could explode at any moment, it's a fear that I used to have because as an entrepreneur for a long time, you find that your identity is very wrapped up in your business. It's a classic problem with entrepreneurs where if Jesse is known as Lumi, and Lumi fails, then does Jesse fail? That's a fear that I don't have anymore. Actually, I'm going to do everything I humanly can. I work really hard on Lumi, on my business, and I don't anticipate it failing. But if something happened, I'm me. We'll be fine, and I have plenty of, got plenty of zest for life going on. Yeah.
So what's your sort of one enduring piece of advice that you would want to give to other aspiring entrepreneurs? What's one thing you wish you had known when you started?
I'm sure there's a lot of classic ones come to mind, like everything takes longer than you think, and you have to have that patience. And my Twitter bio is I stuck to a simple idea for an unreasonable amount of time. And I think that encapsulates something that I wish other entrepreneurs took more to heart, which is that you building anything takes an unreasonable amount of time. The reason I'm phrasing it as unreasonable is that to anyone else who's not an entrepreneur, to anyone else you talk to, whether it's your mom or your mentor or whatever, there's going to be people who tell you at every step of the journey that it's all taking too long and you could definitely be making more money at a job or this or that. Like, and it's all real. Everything they say is real. So they're not lying to you, but you have to be able to stick with something for an unreasonable amount of time. And so what allows you to do that is a passion for what you're doing. And so I think that it turns into like, a little bit of a double piece of advice, which is really valuing perseverance beyond reason sometimes. And then part and parcel with that is thinking long and hard about the original mission and the idea that you're setting up for yourself. Because if you can't imagine yourself working on that idea for 5 or 10 years, then your business is not going to work by default because you're going to quit your own business at some point. And more businesses than anyone will care to admit fail because the founders quit.
Mm-hmm. So in some ways, you almost are glad that you didn't know how hard it was going to be before you started.
It definitely has like that childbirth vibe where it's like if you knew what it was going to feel like you might not do it. But then when you're like looking at a cute little baby or a successful business or you have some great customers, you're like, oh, I'll do it all over again.
You only see the end point, and you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But it is good advice for when you're in the thick of it. It's like, you know what, I'm not alone. This is not.
No,
unusual.
You're definitely not. No, that's why we do a little speaker series at Lumi called Talk Shop, and we have entrepreneurs come in and tell their story, and one of the reasons for me to do something like that is like it's a little bit of giving back. It's a little bit of like entrepreneurs have their glossy story that gets told in the press and stuff, and that's not a fake story. I want to be clear, like it's not a fake story, but it is a highlights reel. It is the sizzle reel of your business. It is like, and then they went to Y-Combinator, and then they made $1 million. Like, and in real life, it was like they don't do the like, and then they were crying at 3 a.m. because a critical deal fell through. Like that's not part of the sizzle reel. Like they don't put that in there. Like and then like they lost a key employee, and then everyone called something into question because there was, I don't know, some problem. Like that stuff doesn't go in the press articles, but there is not a single entrepreneur I have ever talked to who has told their story that doesn't have those parts too.
Yeah, that's true. Well, is there anything else I should have asked?
No, I think like I thought this was awesome. I love this conversation, and I hope that it, leaves people with, some actionable things that they could do for themselves.
Thanks so much for joining us. You have not only do you have an inspirational story, but it's also just such an interesting, your business model is interesting, and it's so relevant to so many entrepreneurs that I think that, I definitely learned a lot, and awesome. I hope everyone else did.
Thank you so much for having me.
You raised $9 million in capital since we chatted. A lot of things have been changing. Yeah. Tell me, how did that go?
It was an adventure. I think that, fundraising is pretty hair-raising, as most founders will tell you, but obviously on the other side of that is the ability to, build your company. So it's pretty exciting.
What was the pitch that you made to the investors that convinced them that it was a good opportunity?
It's such a story, right? Like I think that when you go and you pitch investors for a Series A, they're really looking not just to understand that you've built a company, but they're trying to understand as well that you've assembled the team that will keep working on that idea. So I think that for us, helping them understand how large the opportunity is in something like packaging for e-commerce, which might not have been something they were thinking about every day, that's really key. But then helping them understand why we, like Stefan, myself, and the entire team we've assembled are the people who are going to make a difference in that space is equally important.
How did you convey the size of the opportunity? Why now for what you're doing? Because it's definitely a very unusual business proposition.
No one's concern is that like the world isn't using enough packaging for, your business to have an opportunity. But then I think the real question becomes, why is this a good opportunity now? Talking through with the investors, the rise of e-commerce, which of course they're very familiar with, but then also specifically the changes to the packaging industry that are being brought by direct-to-consumer business models. They're all thinking about direct-to-consumer business models, but they may not have been thinking about the impact on other industries like packaging and logistics that rise is bringing. So that I think was very helpful as well.
In our last conversation, you said success is learning, and that's how you define success. And I was wondering what you've learned in the last year since we spoke.
So many things. I mean, definitely like in a year in entrepreneur years, it's like dog years or something. I mean, there's like so many things that you learn. I probably couldn't even.
What was the biggest surprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that hiring as a core competency is something that I've really been working on as a person, and then also, of course, like as a whole company, because it sounds very obvious, but like a company is made out of people. But finding the right people for the right stage of your business and helping motivate them and getting them up to speed, it really becomes a full-time job, which is very different than the early days where it's like 10 people sitting around a table or 5 people sitting around a table trying to get something done.
How many people do you have now?
We're about 36 people right now.
Wow. Yeah. So when you hit, I mean, that's what I've seen is when you hit about 25, it's when you see the real tipping point and the culture starts to shift.
Yeah, it's really, well, it just becomes a very different thing. Like, so you have to kind of not mourn the different phases, but you have to become a new thing. And it still has the DNA of the old thing. Like, it's still Lumi and you still have that same culture that you started, but it morphs and you try to involve more and more people into it.
I'm really interested in how you're enabling companies to tinker in the physical world in the same way that they've been able to in the digital world for a while now. You know, websites and social media marketing teams can just kind of make little tweaks here and there. And this is kind of new. Have you been able to gather any information that talks about, the engagement increase or what are the benefits? Has that actually panned out for these companies?
The rise in brands using custom packaging as opposed to just like blank, craft boxes and stuff is really spurred by them, one, kind of understanding that the package is the new storefront, which I remember discussing a little bit with you, like, in the same way that Nordstrom would invest in like good lighting and carpeting and stuff, this is the box that is the physical experience of your brand. An experience matters to a brand. That's undoubtable. The question becomes, how much of that experience can you attribute back to the packaging? We see a lot of brands, like MeUndies is a good example, where they change their graphics out even more often and do special campaigns with partners or for seasons. And that ends up, filtering directly out into social media and directly out into conversations that their customers are having, where the packaging itself makes it into the dialogue, makes it into the photographs. But I think the other thing to consider is custom packaging, although usually coming at a slight cost increase to completely blank packaging, you still need packaging if you're going to ship on e-commerce. Like, you can't not have any kind of box. So the incremental cost of actually branding it is not necessarily that extreme because you already have to have some sort of package just physically to get your product from point A to point B.
What company were you talking about just a minute ago?
MeUndies.
Oh, MeUndies, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Here in Los Angeles, yeah.
So what would be an example of how they do that? How would it show up in the social media?
They've done like a lot of campaigns. They're very active in changing out their packaging and, of course, the graphics on the product themselves. But they did a really, really fun, cheeky Valentine's kind of campaign. They're encouraging people to, talk about their loved ones and stuff. And it was really the whole thing, like the packaging was just as much a part of that campaign as the messaging itself or the product itself. It all becomes one, really. And I think it's cool to see that come to life.
One of the most common questions I get from entrepreneurs is how to find suppliers. Mm-hmm. And that's really part of your core IP in a way. Mm-hmm. This is the network and of suppliers of packaging. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, what's that process like to build out that network? Has it been challenging for you? And do you have any tips for entrepreneurs that are looking for their own suppliers?
We take a very analytical approach to building out that network. I think that the key for us is actually understanding how everything is made. So a box factory isn't like just a box factory. It's a building with people in there, and then people have certain expertise, and then there's very specific types of equipment. Like one box factory might have printing equipment to do two-sided printing on two sides of a box. Another factory might have only the equipment to do one color printing on one side of a box. So these things are not identical. From our perspective, we want to represent the ability to produce anything that an e-commerce company would want. But I think something that's underestimated from the brand perspective is how different every single factory is. Like, there's this concept that if I find someone online who says that they make t-shirts, like, I'm set. But there's a massive variation in every manufacturer, what their capacities are, what materials they use, where they are geographically, so where they can ship and what their lead times are. So I think the key thing when you're searching for vendors and factories to work with is to actually really understand your specifications of what you're looking for in a very detailed way. People underestimate how many details they need to know before they can have an intelligent conversation with a manufacturer.
There have been a lot of companies that have tried to commodify the manufacturing process with different platforms, and they haven't all succeeded. In a way, you're doing it a little bit because they're the back end for what you're doing, and I'm curious how that's working out for you.
There's been a lot of marketplace kind of approaches or communication platforms, right, where it's more of a directory and you like try to find a vendor and then you message them. First of all, I really respect anyone who's trying to take an approach angle and making it easier for brands to buy custom things. I think it's a really complicated problem. There's a lot of ways to attack it. But I think that the core thing that Lumi has been working on as well that isn't addressed by like a communication platform like that is that the core problem actually is that these two parties don't really know how to talk to each other. So just facilitating them talking to each other faster doesn't necessarily make it any better. Maybe they can get in touch faster, but it doesn't mean that once they get in touch, they have a higher success rate. So I think that we think about what types of information does the manufacturer need to do their job correctly? And what types of information does the brand usually know? And what's missing? What are the gaps? How can Lumi more effectively get those gaps filled so that by the time a manufacturer is getting an order, they just get a clean order that is ready to go and is already dialed into their equipment? And the brand side, how can you have that conversation? How can you get that data and specifications out of them without causing them a lot of pain too? Because it's really almost a communication problem more than like a directory or like sourcing problem.
Well, and I think a lot of these suppliers, they find they don't want to talk to startups because it's just, there's risk, because it's a distraction, and they just don't know if it's going to lead to any more business. And so you're taking away a lot of that risk and you're taking away a lot of the complexity. So I think that's one of the reasons why you're successful. How many people did you pitch when you were fundraising?
So we went out and we had a list, kind of a very curated list of investors who we were interested in. And I probably in a 2-week period was in like 20 different offices. But that list of 20, like that's pretty focused already. There's a lot of, venture capitalists out there. And so we went out and had a lot of conversations very quickly to kind of kick off our process. But it was, it was a whirlwind of a lot of meetings really quickly.
And how did you get the guidance? Did you feel like you knew what you were doing, or how did you get the guidance to know what to do?
I don't think any entrepreneur truly feels like they just like know what they're doing and that fundraising is like some sort of cakewalk. But I definitely felt like it was more of a process than when I went out to raise our seed round, because I did have a little bit more guidance. I had done it one time before, meaning we had raised some capital already. I also had a lot of guidance from other entrepreneurs, as well as from our board member at the time, Satya Patel. He's still on our board. And so working with them, we really developed like a game plan, which I think a lot of founders don't have when they head into a fundraising. They kind of just go out and they're like, I'm hoping for the best, or I'm going to go see what people say, or if anyone bites. Even VCs, they react well to you seem like you really have a fundraise plan, that you're really like on a schedule and stuff. So I think we tried to approach it that way.
Cool. I'm very excited for you. It's so neat to see you have been able to convince people to come on board with your grand vision, and you're growing and doing great things.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate
and also
it.
supporting the entrepreneurial community. So that's exciting. Thanks so much for joining us again to give us an update.
Thank you.
I want to highlight 3 really useful things I learned from my first conversation with Jesse. First, with today's trends in e-commerce and retail, packaging is more important than ever. It's often your only physical relationship with your customer. Second, you can be frugal and create a memorable experience. In fact, customers don't want you to overspend on packaging any more than you do. The key is to think about the image you want to portray, the minimum you need to safely move your product from point A to point B, and then be creative. Simple packaging isn't only cheaper, it's easier to assemble and store. Don't use a custom box unless you have to, especially if you're running your business out of your Soho apartment. And finally, stay nimble and local. Keep less than 2 to 6 months of packaging and inventory, and manufacture your packaging and fulfill your product within 100 miles from where you ship. In our follow-on conversation, I found 3 things especially interesting. First, if you're raising money from VCs, have a plan. Approach the investors deliberately and in a coordinated way. Second, it's really hard to find good suppliers. You're not alone. The first step is to really understand your specs and recognize that not all manufacturers are the same. You can't just commodify the process like a company like Uber can with their drivers. Lumi has invested years into building their supply chain for their customers, and their secret sauce is figuring out how to match their customers and suppliers and get them to communicate effectively. And finally, I love seeing how today's tools are allowing new stakeholders to play a role in the manufacturing process. With Lumi, it's easy for a graphic designer or a marketing person to tweak the packaging, just as easy as tweaking a website or post to social media. It's becoming easier and easier to iterate on physical products in a way we take for granted in software. I believe this new agile way of thinking is a game changer for how products will be designed and made in the future. Are any of you headed to the Playa next week? Come visit me. I'll be staying at the Black Rock Travel Agency near the airport. That's at the end of 5 o'clock by the trash fence. Hope to see you there. Time to wrap it up for the Art of Manufacturing. Tune in next Thursday when we speak with the founder and CEO of Knock Knock, Jen Billick. We talk about humor and manufacturing disasters. Don't miss it.
For show notes, visit www.artofmfg.com. Follow our adventures on Instagram and Twitter at artofmfg. And to chat with other like-minded creators, join the Art of Manufacturing Facebook group. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or your favorite player. And if you like the show, do us a favor and leave us a review. Or send us a message with your thoughts and ideas to feedback@artofmfg.com. This podcast is produced by At Large and Dangerous in collaboration with Make It in LA and other partners. Visit makeitinla.org/connect to sign up for local LA events and news. A big shout out to Peter Brandenburg, the producer and audio engineer. Thanks for listening to The Art of Manufacturing. I'm Z Holly, and remember, don't just make it, make it.